The body language guy has decided it's his turn to talk about Kevin Samuels. I am going to share the link to a video entitled Is Kevin Samuels Legit? The body language guy weighs in. That same guy that spoke about Derek Jackson. Let me do a quick review on what this guy has to say in this very enlightening video.
Since my analysis on Derek Jackson, I've got requests on checking out Kevin Samuels' videos. For those of you that don't know him, Samuels is an image consultant and life and dating coach. He has managed to amass quite a following on YouTube and Instagram, I guess thanks to the way he roasts anyone that dares to have a live Zoom call with him, mostly women.
Kevin is the roast master, we know this.
Sample is the line "you're average at best" that you just saw. Now, opinions about Samuels remind me of Derek Jackson. Half of his audience hates him and the other half defends his ways of addressing his main topic.
Very interesting.
That is what it means to be a high-value man or woman, and what does it take to date one. So I decided to take a good look at his videos, including The Glitch, and notice some behavior patterns that will be useful to define his true intentions.
Okay.
By the end of this video, you'll have a much better perspective about how to judge Samuels, and at the same time, you will acquire 3 essential skills to analyze on the fly the profiles of similar personas. Welcome back, my body language buddies. My name is Jesus Enrique Rosas, and I'm the body language guy. I'd be really grateful if you take just 1 second to like this video, subscribe, and hit that bell so you don't miss any of my body language analysis and tips. Let's get down to it. In your body language journey, you will bump into cases like Samuel's. People that have polished their delivery to the point that there are few reactions and emotional markers. And in this case, it's due to the fact that he has been practicing that delivery for quite a while. When you watch his videos from 5 years ago, just starting out, he was a bit nervous and stuttering. And that's great.
Yes, Kevin Samuels spoke about the fact that O'Shea Duke Jackson told him that he was corny, and clearly he has been practicing his craft. Kevin Samuels, the master salesman of Black YouTube.
Something that we all should aim for, to do something that makes us feel uncomfortable and keep pushing until we get better and fluent. But that controlled delivery in the present time means a lack of body language clues that we can use. Even so, body language is just one piece of nonverbal communication, and in that sense, we've got a lot more sources that we can analyze to catch behavior patterns. To get to those secret clues, first we have to ask ourselves certain questions to serve as a guide in our observations. First one is, for how long has Samuels been doing these harsh interviews? Second one is, what are his intentions? And the one whose answer must be the most baffling is, why do people keep jumping on Zoom calls with him? It's important to define relevant time frames so we can have a better understanding of the context of someone's behavior. Looking at Samuel's video.
So, I guess the best I can say is Kevin Samuels is authentically who he is. The shock value of his content. He's not afraid to attack women's egos. Your average looking at best. People like you die alone. We know the famous question, do you have a big? And basically said, so basically you're just a fat
Over 5 years at a macro level, you notice that there are 3 main eras. The first one is the fragrance reviews. He started as a reviewer of perfumes, not interviewing anyone and just talking about the features of each brand and bottle. Then he moved into image and attitude advice, mainly focused on men, but it was more like a life coaching angle than talking about how to dress. And that's when the concept of...
It seems Kevin Samuels always finds a way to tweak his content to the audience that he knows is watching him.
Value man started, and this concept is very important and I will address it in a minute. But then he made a slight transition and shifted his focus to women, and there's a video from April 2020 with a very particular title that caught my attention. Embrace being arrogant, stop dumbing yourself down. That caught my attention because I'm sure that if you ask anyone about Samuels, whether it's a fan or a hater, the topic of arrogance is going to come up. And
So Kevin Samuels has shifted the focus from his core content. He's decided to stick with the narrative that is best suitable to his audience. We see a lot of people who are agreeing with some of the points that the body language guy has made.
just to be clear, Samuels has a point with this topic. Most of us, especially men, apologize too much. We are too afraid to hurt other people's feelings, so a healthy dose of arrogance is always helpful.
We have to be
there is a
straightforward
flaw in
sometimes.
Samuel's arrogance, and to explain it, we must address the concept of high-value man. So we already defined the 3 stages of Samuel's evolution over 5 years, but we still need to be aware that after this average at best video, his channel views and following exploded. And of course, everyone wanted to know which was the center of Samuel.
And we know that many people, especially women, were very hurt by how he treated that particular caller.
Premise. In this case, the archetype of a high-value man. And he's got a clearly defined list of 6 items. Earning more than $100,000 a year, earning that for 5 years in a row. Other high-value men recognize him as a peer. He's got a network with other high-value men. He's got LinkedIn-level visibility. That means that you can be public about what you do and how you earn your money. And finally, be useful to others and to the group or community. But I had a problem with this list, and one
Me
of the
too.
videos that detailed this description was the one called "Do High-Value Men Deserve to Cheat?" And in that,
In all fairness to Kevin Samuels, he did say that there are other things that could go on the list.
so according to Samuels, 2 high-value men of history could be Alfred Krupp and Stephen Duncan. They are perfect fits for this list. By the way, Krupp was the main provider of steel for the Nazis, and Duncan was the largest slaveholder in Mississippi. But morals and ethics has nothing to do with it.
Lack of
So we're
character.
getting close to the core of why half of the people despise Samuels and the other half loves him. One of the greatest problems of our time is that there's a huge misunderstanding between internal values and external manifestation. Let me use one comment on one of Samuel's videos as an example. The channel Wealth Building Educator put out a very compelling list of what he thinks is a real high-value man. He's got very solid points such as emotional intelligence, have a purpose, take care of themselves, being assertive, have a growth mindset, and take responsibility, none of which are mentioned by Samuels. But even if you combine both lists, they will be lacking points such as spirituality, loyalty, and character, and many others.
For a lot of people, they would disagree. I mean, think about wealthy people who commit themselves to charity, and the body language guy did allude to folks like that as well. So I do believe that that's a part of the problem that some folks have with Kevin Samuels' list as it relates to high value.
That's how we arrive at the fundamental flaw in this reasoning. We assume that we all have the same set of values to live by, but that simply doesn't work that way. We all have different sets or combinations of values.
As the body language guy says, it really comes down to your values.
Great, that's why there are doctors and teachers that just give their life for others, and there are people who put all their energy on wealth building, and others seek pleasure, and others are really spiritual. That's the beauty of humanity. Now, I must acknowledge that Samuels has a point with his definition of a high-value man. It's a very practical definition. The man should be financially stable and not through shady means. Since Samuels is talking about dating and relationships and even marriage, it makes sense that he puts a lot of stress in this point. I'm not saying that being financially stable is all a man needs to bring to a relationship, but that stability, as defined by Samuels, usually is the result of other factors like work ethic, being consistent, keeping your emotions in check, having a long-term vision, and so forth. Well, hoping that you're not Patrick Bateman. And this is a great example of how we should approach human behavior. It's like an iceberg where we can only see certain manifestations. but those manifestations imply other factors that we cannot see or even measure. And by the way, if you want to be able to decipher those manifestations, you can start by my body language book right on the description of this video. So half of the people hate Samuels for the very simple fact that they've got a different set of values and they don't share his point of view. But there's also the fact that Samuels can be a real son of a bitch at times. His crude and harsh delivery has multiple goals. The first one is making people talk about him.
So for the crude and harsh delivery aspect of things, so for many of his followers, what they will say is that, he's speaking the truth. So women who are truly interested in changing, they will accept his message and the way he delivers his message. And we do know that Samuels also has a lot of female followers. Why Samuels is not able to bridge this gap to be able to bring his message across differently, we may never know. And for many of us, we just believe it's a weakness in his character.
Average at best was a video that went viral and made his channel grow exponentially. At the same time, that kind of remarks make his fans more passionate about him, make his haters hate him even more, and that creates an amplification of engagement. And you know that engagement is like crack for any social media platform. Half are insulting him, half are defending him, and if you don't know Samuels yet, then you're at least a bit curious. Now, I've noticed a pattern on Samuels' attacks, and it's that he sometimes despises women and men whose current relationship status or physical features don't fit the topic or even don't fit Samuel's standards. For example, a woman cannot talk about not getting dates if she's fat, or she cannot talk about long-term relationships if she's not having dates. And this is important because this is the kind of argument called ad hominem attack, which means that you don't address the argument or the idea or the point of view of the person. You attack the person themselves.
I spoke about this in my video on July 4th as well. And on this very point about ad hominem, a few months ago, when it seems he was coming under attack in every way, he sent out a poll in his community group just to ask what he was doing wrong. And I do remember that he specifically said that ad hominems and pejoratives would not be addressed. So for him to do the very things that he does not approve, it does show a level of hypocrisy. Kevin Samuels gaslights quite a bit.
Kind of concepts that stress the importance of critical thinking when analyzing human behavior. And I'm going to invite Derek Jackson to give an example. You know that Derek Jackson cheated on his wife, and at the same time he was advocating loyalty to his followers on Instagram. So we could easily say, hey Derek, you can't just tell people to be loyal and at the same time cheat on your wife. But the interesting fact is that if you extract Derek's advice from his persona, from his character, the advice of being loyal to your wife is sound advice. It's great advice. Now, it makes Derek a hypocrite, no doubt, but the argument of being loyal is still valid. And please pay attention to this. This can work both ways. Derek behaves badly but gives sound advice. But there can also be people who behave morally and give very bad advice. Just think about it. We're entering philosophical ground, but in the end, it all boils down to values. We fall prey to bad advice because we haven't clearly defined the values that we want to live by. Samuels has his chosen sets of values. Maybe you agree with some of them and don't agree with others, but that question is internal. And that's the problem with society. We don't take enough time to...
So I don't think this guy is telling us exactly what he thinks, at least not in this video. I think he is choosing his words very carefully, and I wouldn't be surprised if he has a follow-up video to go into more details from the body language standpoint. I mean, I may have missed quite a number of things, but he seems to have touched a little bit more on Kevin Samuels' persona and public presence rather than to look on a more granular level, in terms of his expressions and his body language when he says certain things. That way we can figure out if he was lying or gaslighting.
It in silence and reflect about ourselves and our own set of values. And that's how a person with a huge following can have influence, and not in a positive way. Ad hominem attacks are also used by covert manipulators. There are dozens of examples of how they use it, but I'm going to give you the template so you can learn to identify that. It's like this. You can't talk about this topic because you've never experienced this topic. That's how a manipulator taps into your lack of.
And people come right back and they say, how is Kevin Samuels giving advice when he's been twice divorced and his marriages were within a short time span, which suggests that he was a very big failure.
Experience or guilt or past mistakes just to invalidate your argument. Now you know that it doesn't work that way. That you have the right to have an opinion and stand by it. I got questions like, can't you tell if Samuels is really like that, or is he putting on a facade? And I think that's the wrong question. The right question is, what are Samuel's intentions? And this is the most important question you can ask yourself when you're analyzing human behavior.
So for a lot of black men, he's trying to save the black community, and he is being that voice for men that has never been represented in the media. So that's what he represents to, for instance, the black manosphere, and many men who support him and who defend his name in the different YouTube spaces. I am more interested in analyzing the situations, analyzing the phone calls, analyzing the messages, and sharing my agreements or disagreements.
He's looking to amplify his outrage, and he found out that being harsh to women live is his fastest way to do that. I don't blame him for wanting to grow his audience.
So he believes that Samuel sees an opportunity to grow his channel by being harsh with women. Being harsh on the live phone calls and the shows he chooses and the thumbnails that he uses.
I want 1 million followers too, but I personally think that you can never leave morals or ethics outside of the equation. It will be great if you comment what's your opinion on this. But now, you might be wondering, why do women keep calling to appear in his show? And there are a few psychological explanations for this. They could be looking for attention, looking for male validation, or they feel bored and lonely, they lack a father figure, or they just want the excitement of being live with Samuels, even if it means bearing ridicule in front of thousands.
So for most people, we will never understand why someone would subject themselves to that kind of public embarrassment.
Not synchronicity, but as I was researching this, the song Sweet Dreams popped up, and the line "some of them want to be abused" couldn't be more fit. So by this point, we've answered our 3 original questions. First one, for how long has been Samuels doing this kind of interviews?
He switched.
Well, he changed in a matter of years, switching to the current mother of telling the truth to women's faces live. And the fact that it's such a long way from his first perfume reviews that the second question, what are his intentions, is, well, he found another niche, he developed his live delivery, and he's trying to maximize his outreach and grow his audience by literally insulting and making fun of women.
I've always been of the view that if something else become popular or starts to trend, Kevin Samuels would switch in that direction. With the shift in his content, it does show a clear agenda to grow his channel, because for some reason, because of his approach, and let's face it, his show is very entertaining, the shock value is there, his presentation, they're definitely a cut above the rest. No one can really argue with that. So I do believe that's also a part of why people would call in to somehow take the challenge in debating with Kevin Samuels. He makes them famous.
There will always be women that are more than willing to jump on a call with him just for some excitement or to try to prove a point. But now there's a fourth question. Why do people keep watching his show? And the answer is very simple. Why do you think Gordon Ramsay or Simon Cowell are so famous? And the fact is that in every story we need a villain, and most of the time the villain's duty is to make people suffer. Reality shows are not much different than the times of the Colosseum in Rome. We haven't changed much since then. We gather in the same venue to watch people try to defend themselves against beasts. But nowadays, it's not lions. Now it's judges that destroy volunteers ripping apart their self-esteem in front of a live audience. We watch those shows and at the same time feel glad that we are not them. And we always wonder what would happen if we were there in front of that audience, facing them up front. We also crave the desire for a catharsis, like a release of that anticipation in the form of one man or woman who manages to get back at those mean judges. Like a modern day Maximus Decimus Meridius in Hispania Got Talent. There's also the fact that many people feel repressed, and watching Samuels talking like this, insulting like this publicly, it's something that they would like to do themselves. They don't think they could ever talk like that, but at least they can watch someone do it without remorse. Now, regarding that glitch. During one of his programs, Samuels screenshot a man sleeping on a tiny bed. And that moment he said that there was some kind of glitch in the system. Then, in Vlad TV, he claimed that it was some sort of a prank from someone who had called and showed that image in their Zoom call. Well, first of all, he was controlling his own software at that moment. I think he has enough experience using it to not make this kind of mistakes. You don't send a live feed to the mainstream without checking it out first. And he would have noticed that the person calling had a man sleeping on a bed. He would have asked directly, "Hey, who is..."
And then for some people, when you look at the pillowcase, everyone can tell that Kevin has an eye for detail. So when you look at what happened or what was exposed in that bedroom, from the pillowcases, the colors, they all seem to match. So I don't buy that story either, but to each his own.
Are you sleeping or what? In fact, being Samuels so harsh, he would have showed the man sleeping on purpose to poke fun at the call and then drop it. So I don't really buy the prank explanation, but there's something that we should address. A lot of people are really invested in trying to get Samuels out of the closet, and they found this glitch of a man sleeping on a bed the perfect proof of it. And this is the reason why I spent most of this video talking about values and the ad hominem attack. That's what makes him in or out of the closet irrelevant.
I would disagree with that, because on one hand, Kevin Samuels acts as if he is a heterosexual man who is interested in talking about discussing men and women being in relationships, and basically saying that in future no one wants to be alone, so he desires to be with someone as well. But for those who view his content, it just does not seem to line up with anything else. It just seems to be words that he is speaking. I think when Kevin Samuels starts to show real life examples of the kind of women he dates and other things that he makes claim about or that he represents as being high value, they will see him as being authentic. But for now, we do not see his actions lining up with his words. So for
either way, you should always separate the person from what they say. Now you know that it can affect you both ways. It's much more important to realize that Samuels has his own set of values, and at the same time, he's willing to do whatever it takes to grow his audience.
And for a lot of YouTubers, we have to give you the truth. There will always be people who are willing to play by different rules to get the results that they want. I am going to put the link in the description so you can go ahead and just review the video for yourself. But I like the point that he made about manners maketh man. I think the world will be a very dangerous place when people who have means use their means as a way of just carrying on unethical and immoral behavior and being willing to treat people they consider less than themselves in a very poor and bad manner, yet they are excused for it just because they define themselves by some different characteristics. I can't see that as honorable. Therefore, I can't see Kevin Samuels as honorable. Question again, is Kevin Samuels authentic? Absolutely not. Kevin Samuels is still a work in progress, and we can only hope that over time he will evolve. Go ahead and leave a comment. Let me know what you think about this review. Go ahead and hit the like button, subscribe to the show, and hit the notifications for some more of this great content. Thanks for viewing. I'm out. Peace.